Hi friends, so I was watching Roughly, the live stream they have on RT, Russian TV, and they were outside Belmarsh Prison, the high maximum security prison where Julian Assange has been unfairly placed since his recent bail trial, where he was put in for 50 weeks. And Kristen Harrison from WikiLeaks and Pamela Anderson and another gentleman, I don't know what his name is, but I think he's from WikiLeaks too. They all went to see Julian Assange. He's been in that prison now under 23 hours a day of solitary confinement with, I think, only a half an hour or something of time to be able to do what he needs to do. I don't know, I guess that's walking outside. I don't know what exactly that entails. They said half an hour, even though he's in there 23 hours a day. I'm not sure what the other half hour, what happens there. But anyway, apparently it's just really dreadful in this prison, and it's totally inappropriate. Well, it'd be inappropriate for any human being, but totally inappropriate for somebody whose only crime, in quotes, is journalism. And it makes me really, really upset to see this sort of thing going on. I mean, when I saw Pamela Anderson and Kristen Harrison and that other person coming out of the prison, the looks on their faces, you could tell. I mean, it took a while for them to get over to the cameras to give an interview, and I'm going to show you the interview with Pamela Anderson. But they looked like they'd been to a funeral. That's what it looked like. And maybe they weren't prepared for how bad it was in there. But she said that she said a few things, but one of the things that I recall that sort of is a very strong message, and also something that Kristen Harrison, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, agreed with, and that is that he needs to get out of there, and it's, quote, a matter of life and death, end quote. They said that, his spirits are good, but he himself is not looking good. And if he's looking anything, or if he's looking worse than what he looked like when they dragged him out of the embassy and broke international law, dragging him out of the Ecuadorian embassy, then it must be pretty scary, really. And because he just looked so old. It looked like he'd aged so much. He looked yellow looking. He looked really unwell. And it's awful, to see somebody like that who's done nothing, whose only crime, in quotes, is being a journalist. He's a publisher, and the rogue US empire is trying to, basically, I think that they've done some sort of a deal with the UK government. And I don't know what that judge was on about when he put Assange into that, or she put Assange into that dreadful prison, Belmarsh, a high maximum security prison for somebody who's, skipped bail. And he explained why he did that, because he was sure that the US had a secret grand jury indictment, a secret indictment against him, and he was correct. They proved him right. The evidence proved him right. So it was a good idea that he did skip bail. And now he's in this dreadful prison. He spent 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, and the last year was horrific, as one of the Ecuadorian embassy members, staff who worked there, said he was 100% respectful in those 7 years. The last year they just made his life a living hell, in particular when Lenin Moreno got into office. And of course, the rest is history. You know what happened if you've been following this. So, and my government, the Australian government, I'm just completely disgusted. If he dies as a result of all of this, if he gets extradited or if he dies because he just is such ill health, has such ill health that he dies, I hold every single politician in my country responsible that did not speak out. Even if they've only just spoken out, like there's a couple of Greens members who have just spoken out. He's been in there for 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, rotting away in that tiny room. And I will never forgive them. I will never forgive any of the politicians who have been silent. That includes Bill Shorten, who may become Prime Minister at the end of this month. There's an election in Australia. That includes Senator Penny Wong, who's the Foreign Affairs Minister. That includes I wouldn't expect anything more from the Scott Morrison government. They're an extreme conservative government. But I would expect something more from the Australian Labor Party, and I would expect more even from the Australian Greens, but there's been just so little. Even Julian Burnside, he mentioned something when Assange was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy, and as far as I can tell on his Twitter page, he hasn't said anything. And he's running for he's running in the federal election for the Greens, and I don't know if the Greens have said to him, just keep a low profile about Julian Assange during your election. I don't know, but it's bizarre, and I like Julian Burnside. So I don't know, but it's just appalling, and this is happening in real time. We're seeing a man. I mean, there's this sort of thing, and there's injustice all over the world right now. But right now, there's somebody who's done a great service to the world by exposing war crimes in Iraq. Through whistleblower Chelsea Manning, who is also in prison. This is what we do to heroes. We put them in prison and let them, rot in solitary confinement or in torturous situations. I mean, this is how we treat the press. This is, and if he is extradited to the US, this will set such a dangerous precedent for press freedom. This could be done to anybody who exposes war crimes by any government, or in particular the US government, who is constantly, there's war crimes every single day. And also exposing corruption of politicians. This could happen to any journalist, and it just really amazes me how clueless all the journalists are, especially the mainstream, well, I'm talking about the mainstream media now, how clueless they are that they think this won't come to bite them too. And they're saying nothing except when it's going to be a bit of drama. When there's a bit of drama, they might mention him, or to demean him and humiliate him. It's just disgusting, and I'm disgusted once again. I say this regularly when I talk about, what my government and what the opposition party is doing or not doing, whether it's backing up US imperialism, and in this case they're being a US lackey and just going along with what the US wants, and the US wants us to just leave him to rot in the UK, and they're hoping to extradite him. We could actually have him brought back to Australia tomorrow if we wanted to, or very, very soon after. We could have him brought back soon and look after him, put him in hospital and look after him and nurse him back to health. That's what we could do here in Australia, and our politicians are silent. And this could happen to any Australian citizen if we're inconvenient in some way. This also sets a precedent for how our government behaves when an Australian citizen is in trouble. And here I see Penny Wong on her Twitter page sort of being so relieved about the two journalists who were released in Myanmar, who were criticising the government about the Rohingyas. Well, yeah, that's great that they were released. But, it's the irony of his Julian Assange rotting in prison, and it's a matter of life and death that he gets out of there. And no mention of that, but here she is celebrating the release of these two journalists. I mean, the irony. You couldn't make this stuff up. And then she's talking about, she was talking about torture tonight on her Twitter thing. And I'm thinking, well, he's going through torture right now. He's been through torture in the Ecuadorian embassy. And what are we doing? Nothing. And I bet you if I rang up her office, I'd get the same response, which is Senator Penny Wong can decide who she wants to mention and who she doesn't. That's what the response I got the time that I called up. And or some ridiculous thing. It'll be some sort of a flat catcher response I'm going to get. I don't know. It really, really is disturbing. Anyway, I'm very concerned about just looking at the looks on these people's faces when they came out of that prison after seeing him. That's very concerning, and apparently he's lost weight, which is very disturbing. I just think they're basically trying to kill him. The UK government, in cahoots with the US government, are trying to kill him or render him completely psychologically zombified. He has no access to books. He's been in that in solitary confinement for the last month. He doesn't have any books. He doesn't have any computer. You know, they're trying to break him and make him completely. And this is all revenge. Revenge for releasing, exposing war crimes of the US. Revenge for exposing political corruption. This is revenge. This has nothing to do with justice, and it has nothing to do with what they're going to try him for if he ever is extradited to the US, which is espionage. It has nothing to do with that. This is simply journalism. This is the sort of things that Julian Assange did with Chelsea Manning is something that journalists do every day. Every day. He didn't help her hack anything. He helped her get a password so that she could hide her identity, and that's about all he did. There was no hacking or, helping her hack something. I think she's quite capable. She's very bright. She was in intelligence. She had the top security clearance, Chelsea Manning. She didn't need any help. This is just a travesty. It's disgusting, and it's a travesty. What's going on here? A travesty. It is so unjust, and it is so disgraceful. I don't know what kind of world we are heading for. This is just it's heading towards sort of fascist stuff. So unjust. And here you've got the US empire trying now itching to invade Iran. John Bolton, that completely unhinged person, trying to set up a situation to invade Iran. I mean, what kind of a world have we got going here? We need organizations like WikiLeaks, and we need brave people like Julian Assange. And we need brave people like Chelsea Manning. We need whistleblowers, because there is so much corruption going on now. There are so many war crimes going on now, and have been, particularly since 9/11. Read Max Blumenthal's The Management of Savagery, or go to the Grey Zone Project and have a look at the one of their videos that they did about the management of savagery, and you'll find it's fascinating. Anyway, I'll show you this interview with Pamela Anderson. I don't really know, apart from just continuing on keeping pressure on governments and doing protests and writing to Julian Assange in prison. Apart from all of that, protests, etc., I don't really know what to do, and I don't even know if governments even take any notice of people protesting anymore. They didn't when we protested in Australia in 2003 against the Iraq War. They just don't seem to take any notice anymore of people, of the public. They just do whatever the hell they want, ultimately. Anyway, so I'll show you this, and please do what you can. Maybe write to Julian Assange on a regular basis, because at least he'll get those. If he can't read books, at least he can read people's letters. There'll be restrictions on those letters, so you might want to find out what those restrictions are. And, they won't allow people to send, they won't allow people to send photos and all that kind of thing. And write to Chelsea Manning too. There's lots of different things that they have restrictions about for letters, and it won't get through if we don't pay attention to those restrictions. Please put pressure on your government representatives, and please protest, join protests, do whatever you can, because he may end up dying in that prison or becoming so ill, getting cancer. He's had no sunlight for most of the 7 years that he's had no sunlight for 7 years. Hopefully he was taking vitamin D, but I don't know if that's enough. It may be enough, but I think you have to have some sunlight. And that can actually, when you have vitamin D deficiency for a long period of time, you can actually get all sorts of major health problems like cancer, diabetes, and so forth. Even if you're not overweight and stuff, you can, I think, with low vitamin D levels for that long, you can have major health problems. So, and now he's in a solitary confinement, so he's not getting, I don't know how much sun he gets or if he gets any at all. They're trying to kill him, basically. They really are. It's very obvious that they've been trying to destroy him mentally and physically. And I think they're succeeding. I don't know. Anyway, I'll show you this now, so thanks so much for watching. Free Julian Assange, and let there be peace on earth. Please subscribe if you like the content. Please click the notifications bell. Otherwise, you don't receive updates, and feel free to leave comments. So thanks so much for watching. My name is Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Riviga. Till next time, please stay tuned for this interview with Pamela Anderson.
Obviously, it's been very difficult to see Julian here, and to make our way through the prison to get to him was quite shocking and difficult. He does not deserve to be in a supermax prison. He has never committed a violent act. He's an innocent person. He hasn't access to a library, computer, any information. He's really cut off from everybody. He hasn't been able to speak to his children. And public support is very important. Fundraising is very important. He needs all the support he can get. Justice will depend on public support. And he's a good man. He's an incredible person. I love him. I can't imagine what he's been going through. And to see him was good to see him. It was great to see him. But this is just misrule of law in operation. It is absolute shock that he has not been able to get out of his cell. It's been 1 month. It's going to be a long fight, and he's deserves our support. He needs our support. So whatever anybody can do to maybe write to him, encourage him. He's appreciative of any support that he's received. I think he hasn't received any too much yet in the way of letters, but I know people have been writing. It's a process for him to have any kind of communication. It's very difficult, and anyway, we just have to keep fighting because it's unfair. He's sacrificed so much to bring the truth out, and we deserve the truth. And that's all I can say. I'm sorry. I feel sick. I feel nauseous.